Have you ever looked at the world and wondered, why so much conflict? From the black and white images of history books to the high-definition news reports of today, the story of humanity often seems like a relentless cycle of war and struggle. But what if I told you that peace isn't just a dream? What if it's a choice, a skill, and a possibility we can build together? This is the story of why the world is in conflict, and more importantly, how we can find peace. Let's start by digging into the roots of conflict. Why do nations and peoples go to war? It's a complex question, but historians and political scientists point to a few key drivers. One of the biggest is economic inequality. When one group has immense wealth and resources, while another struggles for basic survival, resentment and tension can easily boil over into open conflict. Think about it. If your family is starving while others live in luxury, the desire for change can become incredibly powerful. This isn't just about envy. It's about justice and survival. Throughout history, from peasant revolts to modern revolutions, economic disparity has been a powerful catalyst for violence. We can see this pattern repeating itself time and again, where a lack of opportunity and a sense of hopelessness create a fertile ground for conflict. Then, there are the political disputes. These often revolve around territory, sovereignty, or ideology. Borders drawn by colonial powers centuries ago can split ethnic groups or lump historic rivals together, creating a recipe for disaster. We see this in countless border disputes around the globe, where lines on a map become lines in the sand, defended with lives. Ideological clashes are just as potent. Think of the Cold War, a struggle between two opposing worldviews that brought humanity to the brink of annihilation without a single direct shot being fired between the superpowers. When people believe their way of life, their political system, or their core beliefs are under threat, they are often willing to fight and die to defend them. These political and ideological divides can run so deep that they define generations of conflict. And we can't forget about resources. Water, oil, fertile land, rare minerals, these are the building blocks of modern civilization, and they are finite. As the world's population grows and demand skyrockets, competition for these vital resources intensifies. A dispute over a river that flows through multiple countries can escalate from a diplomatic disagreement to a full-blown crisis. Nations might go to war to secure oil fields to fuel their economies, or seize fertile land to feed their people. This scarcity-driven conflict is becoming even more critical in the face of climate change, which threatens to disrupt ecosystems and displace millions, creating new flashpoints for tension and violence. It's a harsh reality. Sometimes, war is simply business. A brutal calculation for control over the resources needed to prosper. But these abstract causes, economics, politics, resources, have a very real, very human cost. The numbers are staggering. Millions of lives lost, entire cities turned to rubble, generations scarred. But behind every statistic is a personal story. Imagine being a child. Your world defined not by playgrounds and school, but by the sound of sirens and the fear of explosions. Your home, the only place you've ever felt safe, is destroyed in an instant. You're forced to flee, leaving everything behind, becoming a refugee in a foreign land. This is the reality for millions of children caught in the crossfire. They are the most vulnerable victims, losing their parents, their education, and their innocence. The psychological trauma they endure can last a lifetime, creating a cycle of pain and anger that can fuel future conflicts. We hear the stories from survivors. A mother who had to choose which child to carry as she ran from advancing soldiers. A father who uses his last bit of energy to search the rubble for his family. A teenager who saw their friends disappear overnight. These aren't just stories. They are testimonies to the devastating impact of war on the human spirit. They speak of loss, of fear, and of a profound sense of injustice. War doesn't just destroy buildings. It shatters families, erases cultures, and leaves behind a legacy of grief. The infrastructure can be rebuilt, but healing the invisible wounds of a society torn apart by conflict can take generations. We must never forget that the true price of war is paid not by governments or armies, but by ordinary people who just want to live in peace. It's a heavy reality to confront. But despair is a luxury we cannot afford. It's because just as humanity has a capacity for conflict, we also have an incredible capacity for peace. The path to peace isn't easy, but it is possible. And it's being paved every single day by courageous individuals and organizations around the world. One of the most powerful tools we have is diplomacy. It's the slow, painstaking work of sitting down with your adversaries, of talking instead of fighting. It requires patience, empathy, and a willingness to compromise. Think of historic peace treaties, like the Camp David Accords or the Good Friday Agreement. These weren't miracles. They were the result of relentless diplomatic effort of leaders choosing a difficult peace over an easy war. International cooperation, through bodies like the United Nations, plays a crucial role by providing a platform for dialogue and deploying peacekeepers to separate warring factions. But peace isn't just built in the halls of power. It's also built from the ground up. This is where grassroots peace-building efforts come in. These are initiatives led by local communities, by people who have lived through the conflict and are determined to build a better future. It might be a youth group that brings together teenagers from opposing ethnic groups to play sports, breaking down stereotypes, and building friendships. It could be a women's collective that starts a shared business, creating economic interdependence that makes conflict costly for everyone. We've seen incredible examples of reconciliation, like in post-apartheid South Africa, where truth and reconciliation commissions gave victims a platform to share their stories and perpetrators a chance to confess, choosing restorative justice over retribution. In Rwanda, communities have developed programs where survivors and perpetrators of the genocide live and work side by side. These grassroots efforts are vital because they heal the social fabric at a local level, creating a strong and resilient foundation for lasting peace. So, where does that leave us? Looking at the world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel that the forces of conflict are too powerful, too entrenched. But history shows us that's not true. Change is possible. Peace is possible. It begins with understanding the roots of conflict, the inequality, the political divides. The resource competition not to excuse them, but to address them. It continues with empathy, by truly seeing and acknowledging the human cost of war, by listening to the stories of those who have suffered most. And it culminates in action. Peace is not a passive state. It's an active process. You have a role to play in this. It doesn't mean you have to become a diplomat or a foreign aid worker, though those are noble paths. It starts with how we treat each other in our own communities. It starts with education, with learning about the world beyond our borders. It starts with supporting organizations that are on the front lines of peace building, the ones providing aid to refugees, mediating local disputes, and advocating for human rights. Your voice, your support, your compassion, they matter. They are ripples in a pond that can grow into a wave of change. The future is not yet written. We can choose to continue the cycles of the past, or we can choose to invest in a different future, more just, a more equitable, and a more peaceful world. Let's choose peace. Thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, please share it and subscribe for more content that explores how we can build a better world together.